Lovelies, and welcome to another edition of Whip Chat. Today, we are going to be talking about the remainder of the 30 questions every writer should ask their characters. Um, in the very first part, we talked about just basic, the universal DMV, the um, let me try and think of how to phrase this. The universal DMV, and then an assortment of questions, 17 questions about what were your characters' likes and dislikes? What did they like? What did they hate? What were their favorite things? What were their least favorite things? Um, these questions were designed to help build, oh, sorry, um, how you, through the character, how the character sees their universe. Are there things that they love? What is their favorite drink? What is their least favorite drink? What is their favorite season? Their least favorite season? What are tropes, behaviors they like, behaviors they dislike, things they will forgive, things that will send them off? And so now we are going to be going through the second um, part of the series of questions, and um, the first few of these is we're going to be discussing the sliding scale. And the sliding scale is, where are your characters falling on this scale from 1 to 10? And why? Because people have have variables in the way they react to something. There are some things that, like, that don't bother me at all, but would set another person off. And there are things that don't bother other people at all, but I am ready to murder when something comes up. Without taking too long, we are going to go right in to question number 17, from 1 being emotional to 10 being emotionless. Where and remember, you're interviewing your character. Where do you fall on the scale and why, from emotional to emotionless? And these are very good things. Like, I have in the Relic of Time and Shadows War, I have a character, Lord Shads of Odini. He appears very, very emotionless because of trauma that he suffered as a child at the hand of his own parents. They basically, from the time he was a small child, they were harvesting his blood so they could steal his magic. Even though he didn't have access to it yet, they could still access it. So he is very emotionless appearing on the outside, but you can tell that he feels things very deeply, because there's one scene where he starts to get very, very upset about something, and his expression and his deep monotone voice do not change at all, but he's twisting a towel in his hands, and he just rips the towel right in half. So you can see that he is a very emotional person. He just doesn't express it. So these are different levels you can use to build interest into characters to create that relatability. Question number 18, from 1 to 10, where do you fall on the scale from Peacemaker to Instigator? This is a very interesting thing to add. This allows characters to seem like they are much, much more um, in tune or out of tune with the people around them. Do you have a character who just wants everything to get along smoothly? Do you have a character where it's like, would you stop poking the bear? So the scale from Peacemaker to Instigator, there's a lot of people I know that would say, well, my younger sibling's an Instigator. That would make an interesting character profile. Number 19, where are you on the scale 1 to 10 from forgiving to unforgiving? This can be a very interesting thing because it allows your characters to either be benevolent toward the people around you, or to just carry that grudge like they're hauling a mountain. Number 20, on a scale from 1, compassion, to 10, callous or callousness. Where do you fall in your reactions? This is a very important thing because people either they care a great deal about things, or they don't care about things. So you can have that dynamic, and you can have it where a person is very, very compassionate toward those they know and completely callous toward those they have no affection or feeling for. You can have characters who um, have attachment syndrome, which is an actual thing. It is an actual psychological condition where people do not have the ability to build any kind of relationship with the people around them. And they used to say that it was just a lack of empathy, but now they're discovering it is more than that. It is more than a lack of empathy for people. Hello, Jacob. How are you today? Um, the next on our sliding scale of character development is number 21, true love or just lust. Now, this is a very interesting thing because if you are all the way to number 1 in the true love category, it just true love hits, bing, instant love. You run the risk of having your characters seem like they're naive or they're foolish. And if you have a character that is just on the lust end of the spectrum, then you have, I guess, a Chad or a Todd. You have a character that is unbelievable because their motivations are only on the physical relationships. And for the majority, I think that most characters will fall more toward the 4 to 6 range on this, that there is some of the lust, there is the tendency toward true love. They have that feeling for each other going on there. So this develops characters, and it develops a filter of how they see the world and the other characters around them. Number 22. Now, this one is more for, I use this one more for my side characters, is where are they on the spectrum from being a clown to being a constable? Now, that is, the constable is a person who is a law enforcement officer. So if you don't use that term in your country, a constable is like a deputy sheriff or a law enforcement officer. So you have this wiggle room from someone who is completely anarchist, almost just humorous, breaks all the rules. And then you have someone who follows all the rules rigidly and has no sense of humor. Most of the characters fall in the middle on this, but you have to be aware that if you have a constable character and you have a clown character, they are going to conflict because one is a rule follower, one is a rule breaker, and the clown might enjoy provoking the constable, and that might be an interesting level of conflict that happens in their story. Number 23. Now, this is a very interesting question, is are they a defender or are they an observer? Do they step in when situations, they see things that are wrong, when they see things that need to be changed, or that people that are being hurt? Do they step in? Do they step up? Whereas, are they an observer where they just stand back and watch? That, things are happening around them, but they're not getting involved. They are not willing to put themselves at risk to take that step forward. So you have this very extreme uh, personality type here. Most people fall in the middle. They will, and there's many factors for being a defender or being an observer. Most people will fall in the middle, that sometimes they will be a defender and sometimes they will be an observer, but not always. They will be both. But If you have someone that is a staunch defender of everyone, they have something like guardian angel complex or something like that, where they just need to protect everyone around them, even from themselves. And then you have on the far end, you have the person who is the observer. They just watch everything happening. They're a spectator in their own world. And no matter what happens, they are never, ever going to get involved. Hello, cool gamer. Hello, Godzilla. How are you guys today? Are you having fun gaming? All right, we are on to number 24. And this is a very interesting one is, are they live and die by loyalty, or are they the loyalty-smoyalty type? That means, are they the person that once you are their friend forever, they will be loyal to you? Sudden, can you hear me now? My headphones just disconnected. I don't know why they did that. They just randomly do that sometimes. So the live or die loyalty are the people who are loyal forever. Once you get their friendship, they are almost all they are there for you thick and thin, no matter what happens. The loyalty schmoyalty people are the, what am I going to get out of this friendship? What am I going to get out of this relationship? They make very good companions for the antagonist. They make very good people that can just, they seem like you want to trust them, but you can't trust them at all. And the live and die by loyalty people, these are the people that will stay through thick and thin, and you practically have to beat them with a stick to make them go away. So it's a very interesting dynamic. Most people fall in the mid range of these. Most characters will fall in the mid range of these. But the live or die by loyalty and the loyalty-smoyalty, this is trust. This is about how much they are trustworthy, how much they are dependable, how much you can count on them as the story moves forward. Now, the next part that we're going to talk about is what I call the Instamood. And the Instamood is, what are your characters' default responses to the things of the world, to the things that trigger stress, to the thing that cause a mood reaction. So this is the Instamood is that thing that will change whatever is going on in that character's perspective, right like that. And humans have these triggers too. We, in the real world, we have these triggers like if someone cuts you off in traffic, like and almost hits you, that would be an Instamood trigger. That would be something that you're driving along, jamming to your tunes, and everything is fine. And then all of a sudden, swoosh and honk honk, and I just almost lost my front bumper. And then you're like, bad word at you, and bad word at you, and curse on you, and curse on your family, and curse on your family cows. You just have to breathe out, breathe in, and try to calm down, because you don't want to get arrested for road rage. But that is an example of an Instamood trigger. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is the Instamood Soul. It is the feelings are the easiest part for your character and as a person to deal with spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. What are the easiest ones that you just that they come and like you're having a bad day and one of your friends makes you laugh, a cat jumps up on your lap and gives you some love, the dog runs up to you when you open the door. What are those things that instantly change you into a better mood, that instantly help you cope with what is going on in the world? The second part of this is, what feelings are the hardest for you to deal with spiritually, mentally, emotionally? Um, if you are an abuse survivor, suddenly encountering someone else dealing with that could bring up all kinds of internalized feelings and make it very, very difficult for you to not only deal with what they need, what they are feeling, but with what you yourself are feeling. It's You need to understand that the hardest part of being human is feeling for other humans. And having that aspect to your characters helps them to be more relatable. Having someone that just something just shuts them down, and it's let me think. I know someone who she was abused by her father, and but was he liked firearms, and so he almost always smelled uh, alcohol and gunpowder, and it's a triggering thing for her. It is a very, and she did not realize it was a triggering thing for her until we were talking about it later. Took her to the shooting range. She likes going shooting. She enjoys it. She's a pretty good shot, but the smell of an indoor shooting range where all of the sulfur smell of the gunpowder is right in there really, really triggered her, and she didn't realize it till later. That's like an Instamood thing. It's one of those triggers. For number 26, Instamood Heart, a trait or thing that is the easiest to love or forgive. How long does it take to forgive or to love? And the trait or thing that is unlovable or unforgivable. Now, this is a very interesting because it doesn't just necessarily mean romantic love. It can also be an environmental thing. It can also be an event or a pet or something like that. It could be music. Is there like a type of music that your character just automatically loves no matter what it is? Is there some kind of thing that they just automatically hate no matter what it is? Does it take time for them to develop feelings for whatever the thing or the trait is? Like I find it very endearing that people cook for other people, that people will make that effort, or even just bring food if they can't cook. I grew up in the deep south in that southern culture where food was affection. And I find it, very, very endearing that someone will go to that effort for someone else. Now, as far as like an unforgivable thing or something that is unlovable, uh, back to the food thing, the connection with the food thing is I find people that do not um won't share, or if you like, could you do this, do you mind doing this, and they're like, no. And it's not that they have a reason or that they're already doing something. It's that no, I don't want to. It's that selfishness that I can't be bothered to do things for other people, but I expect them to do it for me. That is a trait that I find just that is my most annoying, most unlovable, most irritating trait is people that, they're entitled for everyone else to do things for them, but when they're asked to do something for someone else, regardless of how big or small it is, and they're just like, no, I can't be bothered. That I see that as such a problem. Hi, BA, how are you? Did you get off work? Are you off work yet? The next thing we're going to go on to is number 27 for the Instamood is change, is what will always instantly change your mood, make you happy, make you sad, make you angry, make you withdraw. We talked about the road rage thing about you're driving, you're happy, you're fine. Someone cuts you off, and instantly you're not fine. Instantly you're mad. Um, there's always sudden news. Oh, off work, yay. There's always that sudden news about someone's death that catches you off guard and instantly your mood flips. But there's also other things. There's like, I'm going to use myself as an example because, yeah, I don't want to get personal for other people, but After my brother passed away, he passed away. He was hit by a drunk driver the day after Thanksgiving, and he survived long enough to get to the hospital and be put on life support, but then he was declared brain dead because of massive head trauma. So we arranged for him to be an organ donor. So whenever I think about organ donation or everything, I get very emotional about it because it means so much to me, and my brother helped so many people. But another example of this was I was Christmas shopping for the rest of my family like 2 weeks later, and I pulled a sweater off of a table, and I was like, oh, this would look very good on my brother. And I actually started to put it in my cart, and then I remembered my brother had passed away like 2 weeks earlier. And I had to go shut myself in the dressing room in the department store and just have a sob because you're all kind of you're in denial with that kind of a grief and that sudden loss. You're just kind of like trying to cope, and you just do something unconsciously, and you're like, oh yeah, this is perfect and boom, instant mood change. Another thing. Another thing is there are certain scents or certain types of weather or a certain day of the year, like Valentine's Day for some people is an insta mood change because they don't have someone to be close to on Valentine's Day, or there was a traumatic breakup on Valentine's Day. Um, a certain scent sometimes will remind you of something. I knew someone who she hated the smell of Stetson cologne because she associated it with the person who attacked her. And so the smell of that cologne, it took her years to stop having a fight or flight panic attack moment when that smell hit her. So these kind of insta mood things, it can be anything from a color to a scent to a food to an event to a date. It can be anything. Um, Whenever I see gladiolas, I immediately think of my grandmother Nora. Those were her favorite flowers. Whenever I smell the scent of Carlton cigarettes and gardenia oil, I immediately think of my grandmother Geneva, and it changes how I feel in that day. So the instant mood changes for that, what hits you, you can make that for your characters and it makes your characters seem more real to the people reading your book. Now, number 28 is an interesting one because it deals with stress reactions. The insta mood for stress is what is the biggest stress that your character is going through. And then you sort out what is their stress reaction because people have different stress reactions, different levels of stress reactions. What is their initial reaction? Do they blow up? Do they shut down? Do they step back? Or are they just like, nope, not going to deal with this now? And they step away from it. What is their middle reaction? Are they grumpy? Are they passive aggressive? Do they get mouthy? Do they get snarky? And what is their end reaction? Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they crying? Are they raging angry? And when you are defining their stress reactions to initial, middle, and end stress reactions, another thing to consider is how long it takes them to have that stress break or have that lash out point. Back to the earlier example of the sliding scale, constable to clown. I told you these two characters will always butt heads because they are so different. The rule follower and the rule breaker. And an interesting dynamic to add into a story is when you have a clown character how long will they push the buttons on your follow the rules character, on your constable, before that character finally just blows up? That is a very interesting kind of conflict dynamic to add in, to have a character that goes out and actively seeks to poke the buttons. It's often used in the antagonist in stories, but if you have a side character with this trait, it does create a very interesting dynamic. And sadly, we all know people in the real world, in the IRL, who like to push buttons. That is their entertainment. They like the drama. And so having that in your stories again adds a level of realism that is relatable to anyone who is reading. Now, we're to the Instamood triggers. What are your triggers? Mentioned my friend and Stetson cologne. Yeah, these are things that we can't help. A lot of times our triggers are internalized, and you can have that with your character. You can actually have another character point out to a character, this is your trigger. How do they initially react? How do they interact with others and the world after they're triggered? Now, triggers are a level beyond stress because the stress reactions are just your initial negative reaction to whatever is creating that feeling of I can't do this, I can't get this done, I can't go through with this, versus triggers, which, like the cologne, like the sweater, like getting cut off in traffic. These are things that they just hit you like that and you're not expecting it. One thing that I am really big about is, and this happens in books, is I always put the abuse warning and the assault warnings and trigger warnings in print in the middle of my books. And the reason I know that a lot of all publishers are like, don't put your trigger warnings in the book, just put a little blurb at the front. But I don't want a reader to come through and come across something that is going to trigger them. Like I write child abuse survivors, and I will put in there, this section describes child abuse from the victim's point of view. This section describes an assault from the victim's point of view. And I will put those in there because I know they will trigger real people. Well, I also will do this in my books. I will put in something in the book that will trigger a character, like there's a scene with Camille Wallace that's in Blue Butterflies, which is coming later this spring, where she gets um, she has a panic attack, and Kyle holds her down, not realizing that by holding her, she is being restrained and she is having that actually becomes a trigger, and it causes her to freak out even further. And whenever she gets triggered by something, she'll either ignore it completely or she'll just like try to explain it away. And that is something people in the real world do. They get triggered by something and either they'll say, well, this is this thing, but most time they're like, I'm fine, it's fine. I just freaked out for a moment. It wasn't what I expected. Oh, I didn't mean to be jumpy when you touched me. I just saw a spider. I wasn't expecting to it. You don't even know what someone else's triggers are. So if they react suddenly, like startled, instant flight or fright response, you need to be aware that you might have done something to trigger them. And in the real world, we say, I'm fine. Fine is an acronym for freaked out, insecure, emotional, and neurotic, or neurotic and then emotional, FINE. So having that trait in your character, having them make an excuse, gives them relatability that people see in the real world. Hello, Margaret. How are you today? Just hopping in to try and finish this that I wasn't able to do last week on Thursday with all the wind. So our next one is number 30, and this is the Instamood Goggles. The and I just smudged my glasses. Good gracious. So the Instamood Goggles is basically when you're looking at your character, you're interviewing your character, you want to ask your character, what is your baggage and how does it affect how you interact with others and how do you view the world? Because humans in the real world, everything we see, everything we do goes through our goggles from the time we're about teenager years. We start developing our goggles. What our parents taught us, what our grandparents taught us, what we went through in school. Were we bullied? Were we popular? What we have seen in the media affects how we view the world. And if we write characters, and this is another thing is, don't write characters that are wearing your goggles because that could be problematic. It becomes very self-inserting. So when you're creating a character and you're creating their Instamood goggles, you need to consider how that character would view the world through this event. The most common character I use when I'm describing this is the character of Humphrey Lloyd Longfellow, McConnell, from my Pagosa Cliffs series. Now, Lloyd, he has had trauma very early on. When he was in junior high, his father disappeared with his cousin's mother. And then headphone sorry, I think my headphones are dying. They keep beeping like they're disconnecting. Anyway, so about 6 months later, his father and his cousin's mother were found dead together. And so he grew up in the gossip grinder in Pagosa Cliffs. And then his grandparents and his uncle raised him because his mother had this, she just couldn't handle it. And she just became the meanest person in the whole world. And she took everything out on Lloyd because Lloyd looked like his father. And so he ended up living with his grandparents and his great uncle Ray. And then his great uncle Ray died, and he felt so just upset. But he really was trying to be a good and noble person, and he wanted to like go in the Marines and then go into law enforcement. He had all this plan. And then he got back from basic training and he found his cousin was sleeping with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend was pregnant with his cousin's baby. So that betrayal became the goggles through which he looks at the entire world. He expects everyone to betray him at some point. He expects everyone to be distrustworthy, and he holds everyone at not just arm's length, but arm and a baton length. He keeps everyone away from him. Let's see. Margaret says, I'm creating a nonfiction where the character is researching out her genealogy and they sound like your characters. Mainers? I don't know about Maine. They're in Colorado. So, um, but yeah, the goggles that you have that your characters look at, the way they perceive the world, the way they interact is very, very important. Yeah, the Grinch and the 10.5 foot pole. That is right. Um, and so you can use these goggles to show how they interact with everyone around them. But the other nice thing about these goggles is you can take these goggles and use them as a character arc. Another Pagosa Cliffs character, Camille Wallace, she is extremely unforgiving, like so unforgiving that she did not tell Kyle that she had his daughter or that her sister's daughter survived her sister's accident. So for 15 years, she kept his daughter and his niece a secret because she could not forgive him for what she saw in the pictures from the bachelor party that they did for her sister's fiance. So levels, and you get to see her start learning to forgive, and it becomes this character arc of just moving from this sliding scale from forgiving to forgiveness, the 1 to 10. She goes from a 10 on the unforgiveness scale, and she backs up to probably about a 4 or a 5. She doesn't make it all the way to being a forgiving person, but she starts moving down that scale as Kyle starts proving to her that he is trustworthy, that the pictures were not what she thought they were. And this, so having them take off their goggles can be a very good character arc as a subplot that you're following this character through this arc of the way they see the world to a better way to see the world, or like Lloyd, a worse way to see to the world, where he just like it takes him years to get past to get to a place where he is not assuming everyone is out to get him. And the character Millie, she works on him and is constantly reminding him that you're lucky I'm your friend because you don't have very many. All right. So those are our 30 questions, and we do have one bonus question. And let me see if I can get that pulled up. Pull up the bonus question, and this really has to do with like characters and how far the character is willing to go in an emotional, mental, or physical conflict. And you can see people that are willing that move on these different levels. And I have here, and it's something that actually was who wrote that book? It was in the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant by Stephen R. Donaldson. And he had this group of warriors, and they had this creed that you either hold, hurt, harm, maul, maim, or murder. And it was different. How far do you go to cause someone pain? And their thing is if one thing was enough, they never went on to the next level. Unfortunately, in the world of today, we all know people who will immediately jump from, if they get offended and they're in a fight, they immediately jump to the 3 M's, to the mauling, which is wounding, to maiming, which is crippling, or to murdering, which is to actually kill. They skip to hold someone or restrain them, to hurt them, or to harm them, and they will immediately jump to mauling, maiming, and murdering. And people do this on an emotional level. I grew up in a family where you immediately jumped to the maiming or murdering. If you were in a fight with somebody, it was no matter what it was about, fight to the death, you went for the throat. Years of therapy later, I now know that if I'm in a fight with somebody, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to restrain them. I'm going to try to hold them and keep them at a level where they are not hurting me and they're not hurting themselves. Sometimes I will be angry and I will say hurtful things. I will say harmful things that are injuring to their heart. And I really regret it later. I don't like to, when I turn to that people, I don't like that default. And it's a very, very interesting dynamic to go through these levels. And so if you have characters, what is their default reaction to being attacked, to being in a fight, to being in a struggle? Are they going to hold the person attacking them, kind of hold them off? Are they going to kind of put them down and restrain them and maybe hurt them a little bit? Are they actually going to like hurt them, break something, cut something, say something that will harm the other person? Or do they go straight for the jugular? Do they go for the hard wound? Do they go to cripple that person? Are they trying to kill them physically, mentally, or emotionally? These are different levels that create different levels of conflict and have different levels of reaction. And in each of these emotional, mental, and physical levels, these are actually things that you go through and things that you face. Now, the very last part of the bonus round is if you're in a conflict, how far do you go to win? The reaction is the last part of that is what do you do when you lose? How do they lose? Is your character a good loser? Are they a sore loser? Are they a vengeful loser? Are they a mopey loser? Are they a depressed loser? How do they cope with losing? So we are coming up on the 40-minute mark, and we are at the end of the 30 questions every author should ask their characters. It is now the second day of Camp Nano. As I said earlier, I apologize for not coming out with this sooner. With the wind and the storms and the geomagnetic storms on top of it, my internet was just pooped for the end of last week. So I didn't get this out when I wanted, but I'm getting it out today. I hope this helps you with your character building. I hope it helps you with your world building. I hope it helps you build more interesting and relatable characters that draw in more readers. And thank you, everyone who stopped by. I hope that your Camp Nano is going well. If you're not doing Camp Nano, I hope that your April is going well and that Not You Too 2022 is moving on. Um, just, oh, yeah. Thank you, Margaret. Margaret says, very cool, Maggie. This is like therapy for characters. And it kind of is. There is a lot of things that came from my therapy background that I applied to the way that I build my characters, because I hate white room syndrome and I hate paper characters. I hate paper moon characters that are just very flat. I like things. Sorry, my headphones are just about dead. I hope everyone has a blessed weekend. I hope that all of the craziness in the world will pass you by and that April will be smooth sailing and happy riding. And hold my coffee, hold my latte, hold whatever it is you're drinking because 2022 is trying to get you too. Be blessed and have a very lovely week.